The Cherokee homeland stretched across the rolling mountains and valleys of what is today Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. This was, and still is, a land of thick forests, winding rivers, and countless creeks feeding into the great waterways of the Southeast. Travel by foot was possible, of course, but slow. The dense woods, tangled undergrowth, and rugged ridges turned every journey into an exhausting climb. Rivers, however, offered another path, fast, fluid, and direct. For the Cherokee, canoes were not simply a tool. They were the lifeline of communities. With them, hunters reached remote fishing grounds. Traders carried hides, food, and crafted goods to neighboring towns. Families traveled for ceremonies, visits, or even to relocate entire households. In this world of flowing rivers and thick forest, the canoe was more than transportation. It was a masterpiece of adaptation. It reflected a deep knowledge of materials, a sharp understanding of the waterways, and an ingenuity that impressed even European settlers who came into contact with them. So why exactly were Cherokee canoes so perfectly suited for river travel? To answer, let's look at their construction, their design, their uses, and their cultural meaning. Imagine standing in a forest, staring up at a tulip poplar tree, straight, tall, and stretching 100 feet into the sky. This was the Cherokee canoe builder's raw material. Tulip poplar was the preferred choice because it grew large, was relatively lightweight for its size, and resisted rotting. In some cases, hickory or chestnut might also be used, but tulip poplar was prized above all. Crafting a canoe from a single trunk line required patience, skill, and teamwork. The process began by felling the tree, no small feat with stone axes in earlier centuries, later replaced by metal tools after European contact. Once the trunk was selected, builders used controlled fire to hollow it out. They would burn the inside carefully, scraping away charred wood with stone or shell tools, shaping the hollow gradually. The smell of burned wood filled the air as smoke drifted through the forest. Each step demanded precision. Too much fire could split the trunk, while too little left heavy walls that slowed the canoe. Slowly, the canoe took shape. Long, tapered at both ends, wide enough to carry goods and people, yet streamlined for speed. Finishing touches smoothed the surface, both inside and out. The builders might rub animal fat or oils into the wood, protecting it from water. By the end, the dugout was strong, buoyant, and ready to meet the demands of the river. What's remarkable is that these canoes could be built to different sizes, some just large enough for a single hunter, others massive enough to carry dozens of people and a heavy load of goods. Early European observers wrote of Cherokee canoes stretching 40 feet in length, capable of holding an entire trading party.
But what made these canoes so perfect for rivers? Let's consider the waterways themselves. Southeastern rivers twisted and turned, often shallow near the banks and full of sandbars, rocks, and fallen trees. A boat that was too deep or too rigid would constantly snag. The Cherokee dugout, by contrast, had several built-in advantages. First, stability. Dugout canoes, with their heavy wooden hulls, sat low in the water. This weight gave them excellent balance, making them far less likely to tip when carrying large loads or when maneuvering through swift currents. Second, capacity. These canoes could carry enormous amounts of weight compared to their size. A family might load baskets of corn, bundles of animal hides, fishing gear, and still have space to spare. For traders moving goods between villages, this efficiency was essential. Third, maneuverability. Despite their weight, Cherokee canoes could slip through shallow waters better than many European boats. The flat bottoms allowed them to skim over sandbars and approach shorelines easily. A skilled paddler could navigate rapids or steer quickly around fallen logs. Silence was another key advantage. Hunters could drift quietly toward fishing grounds or unsuspecting game drinking at the riverbank. And let's not forget durability. Unlike lighter bark canoes used by northern tribes, Cherokee dugouts could withstand the rocky, unpredictable rivers of the South. A bark canoe might tear on sharp stones, but a solid log hull could take the beating and keep going. Canoes were woven into nearly every aspect of Cherokee life. For fishing, they were indispensable. Men would paddle quietly into deeper pools, setting nets or spearing fish from the steady platform of their canoe. In some cases, torches were mounted at night, the flames drawing fish to the surface for easier catching. For hunting, canoes allowed hunters to reach isolated spots along the riverbanks or carry heavy loads of venison and hides back home. For trade, they were the backbone of commerce. Cherokee villages often specialized in certain goods: corn from fertile valleys, hides from hunting grounds, salt from springs. Canoes moved these goods quickly, linking distant communities together through a watery highway system. And in times of conflict, canoes even had a military role. War parties could travel stealthily along rivers, moving faster and quieter than they ever could on land. Some accounts suggest raiding parties used canoes to launch surprise attacks on enemy settlements, striking before defenders had time to react. But it wasn't always about utility. Canoes also carried families to weddings, ceremonies, or visits with relatives. They made long-distance travel not just possible, but practical. In every sense, they expanded the reach of Cherokee communities far beyond what the forests alone would allow. Beyond their physical usefulness, canoes carried symbolic weight. To the Cherokee, rivers weren't just waterways. They were living entities, part of a spiritual landscape. Canoes became vessels of connection. They linked village to village, nation to nation, and family to family. Traveling by canoe meant more than moving goods. It meant carrying stories, songs, and traditions. A canoe sliding silently along a misty river was also carrying news of births, deaths, alliances, and celebrations. In this way, canoes wove the Cherokee world together. Some oral traditions even describe canoes in myth and ceremony, representing passage between different realms or stages of life. While details varied, the idea of the canoe as a bridge, a connector, was deeply ingrained. So, when a Cherokee family built a canoe, they weren't just shaping wood, they were shaping a future, crafting the very vessel that would carry their lives forward.
What the Cherokee achieved with their canoes was a perfect balance of engineering and environment. They took the resources at hand, the towering tulip poplar, the abundance of rivers, and shaped them into vessels that answered every challenge of their world. These canoes were sturdy enough to withstand rapids, shallow enough to skim over sandbars, and large enough to carry families and trade goods alike. But more than that, they were cultural bridges. Every canoe on the water carried with it not just people and cargo, but centuries of knowledge, passed down through the hands of builders, through the experience of paddlers, through the stories told as the river carried them along. And even as European settlers pushed deeper into Cherokee homelands, they found themselves learning from these designs, recognizing their brilliance in adapting to the rivers of the South.